Hello and welcome to Talent Talks. My name is David Allison. These webinars and podcasts provide an insight into the changing world of work. They're a conversation with those responsible for recruiting into companies large and small, as well as apprentices and graduates to hear what it's really like. We're covering a wide range of occupations, industries and regions of the country to explore some of the many changes that are happening around us today, as well as the big changes which are on the horizon in terms of skills. We're also looking at the challenges that have been brought about by the pandemic. It's transformed working patterns, it's transformed the skills that young people need as they leave school and join the workforce. So my guest today is Sharon Blyfield of Coca-Cola Europacific Partners. Now, Coca-Cola Europacific Partners is a huge organisation that spans the globe. I have to admit, I've thoroughly enjoyed researching it. Almost 80 sites from Iceland to Indonesia, employing 33,000 people and serving 600 million consumers. So we may all think that we know this famous red can that we see on the shelf, but there's so much more that goes behind it and alongside it with a wide range of other brands too. So Sharon, I'm looking forward to finding out all about the world of Coca-Cola Europacific Partners. But before we do, welcome to Talent Talks and thank you for joining.
Thank you, David. Thank you very much.
So Sharon, I know you've been at Coca-Cola Europacific Partners and its predecessors for some time. What was it that attracted you to work there?
So it's a really interesting journey that I went on. I got made redundant when I was very early in my career, but it was probably the best thing that could have happened to me. And I actually went to work for Cadbury Schweppes, who at that time owned a percentage of, it used to be Coca-Cola and Schweppes beverages. And I was like, I'm sure I could do something other than finance, which is what I was doing at the time before Cadbury Schweppes. And we had internal transfers. So I applied for a sales role, and the company took a leap of faith in me, and I went to work for them in sales. And I have been in the business ever since. And the end of this year will be 29 years.
But wow, that's incredible. And of course, your current role is rather different to finance or sales. Quite a journey.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am responsible for early careers across Great Britain for the organisation. That I've been doing the role that I'm currently in probably now for about 2.5 years, with a mixture of other job roles, because that's the one thing about the world of work. You never just do one job.
Yeah.
But sitting in within the human resource function, I've been in the human resource function probably now for about 17 years. So yeah.
Brilliant. Now, maybe you could just begin by painting us a little picture of Coca-Cola Europacific Partners, because it is, well, firstly, it's huge, but it's not Coca-Cola itself, is it? The kind of the brand. It's quite an interesting story as to how those two are both separate but completely intertwined.
No, absolutely, David. I mean, and that's one of the things and one of the messages we try to get through to young adults, parents, teachers, that you see the brand, we see the red, and that's what everybody sees. But behind that sits a totally different organisation. So the Coca-Cola Company, and if we think about it, the football's on at the moment. So the Coca-Cola Company are responsible for all of the above market. So all of the big promotions that you see, they're responsible for that. I say that we are the doers. So we bottle the products that people buy, and it is our responsibility to make sure that we sell soft drinks. That's our role. So we have a big organisation, and Europacific Partners is a young organisation. It only came about last month. And so that's expanded not only the countries we operate within, the amount of employees we have, but more importantly, the amount of products that we have access to now. So lots of soft drinks that we would probably never have heard of or seen that are in the Pacific, in Australia, in New Zealand. We will start to get them in Great Britain as well. So we've got a whole team of people who have to make them and get them out to the marketplace as well.
I mean, it's an incredibly diverse range of brands, isn't it? So just give us a couple of others then that we may or may not recognise from the stable.
So if anyone's a Formula One fan, Monster is one of ours. So you often see that on Lewis Hamilton. Yeah. So that's one of ours that nobody ever realises. We also have Oasis. That's ours. Smart Water, Dr. Pepper. Schweppes for the parents who may be listening to the call, the Schweppes that you might have with your gin. That's also one of ours. But we've got a whole host of drinks. Capri Sun, anyone who lives near Sidcup who might be watching this, that's the home of Capri Sun that's made in the UK. We could go on. There are hundreds of brands.
So in essence, the kind of the role of Coca-Cola Europacific Partners is then the bottling, the distribution, the sales, everything that goes into making sure that we can actually buy those brands on the shelves of the supermarket.
That is exactly it, yes. So we often get a lot of students and young adults come up to us when we used to go to shows and say, so why are you here? What do you do? And it's really interesting to take them on the journey of, well, that soft drink that you purchased, how it actually got to the shelf for you to be able to purchase it. So all of the syrups come into our factories. We have a whole host of specialists who work on that before it gets into our distribution centres and then out to the stores where it's sold. But behind all of that, we've got our marketeers, we've got human resource, the likes of me. We have a legal team as well, because we all have to have that level of support. Huge finance, huge IT infrastructure as well. So there are many, many career disciplines that make up our organisation.
So, I mean, is that a challenge then? Because Coca-Cola has got to be one of, if not the most recognised brands in the world. But the functions you've just described are probably not ones that parents or careers advisors would associate when they see Coca-Cola on the shelf. So does your kind of the preconceptions of your brand, does it help you or hinder you?
A little bit of both in some respects, because a lot of parents, teachers, young adults, when they're kind of looking at the brand, they think of just marketing. So that goes back to that side of the Coca-Cola company. That's what everyone thinks we do. But in actual fact, for us, we have to then go and explain, you can have a career in our organisation that isn't just about marketing. If you wanted to be a sales rep, if you wanted to be an engineer, a food technologist, a lawyer, somebody who does the finance, all of those roles sit within our corporate organisation, but we really have to explain it. And in this digital world as well, we have to compete with the likes of, Google, Microsoft, because nobody associates us with being a digital company. Yeah, it's critical for us.
And that certainly is a recurring theme, is that every organisation these days needs access to digital skills, and there is no such thing as a business which doesn't employ those digital skills.
No, that's absolutely right. Absolutely right. But like we say, we're not at the forefront of anyone's mind when it comes to looking at those jobs and looking at those opportunities. So we use our early careers agenda to really go out there and market what those careers could look like. And we don't talk about it just from a Coca-Cola perspective, but we talk about any large corporate organisation are going to have all of these types of opportunities. So if you want to become a qualified accountant, you can do that with us. You want to become a qualified lawyer, you can do that with us. You don't have to go to specialist organisations to do that.
And in fact, I guess you can almost argue that you get a broader educational experience if you're not in one of those specialist organisations sometimes.
You absolutely do. And I'll tell you the story of one of our, we have an apprentice with us who's on a 6-year programme as a solicitor. So once he finishes, he'll be a fully qualified solicitor. But what he's had the opportunity to do on his journey so far is to go and see lots of different aspects of our business and also our European business as well, and understand what that makeup is. Now, had he gone to the traditional route of university, he would have only had that academic lens to look through. He has to put into practice his learnings in the real world. And for me, that's a really rich experience for a young person to be going through so early on.
I think it's one of the challenges we observe with a lot of careers advice, where it's almost put forward as an academic route or a vocational route. But if you take something like the example you've just given, it's academic and practical at the same time, isn't it? You really do have to do both together.
You absolutely do have to do both together. I always talk about there isn't one pathway. Everybody learns differently, and everyone has a different approach that they maybe want to take. But they could also end up in the same company, but you've just maybe gotten there in a slightly different way. So we never say one pathway is better than the other. It's got to be the right pathway for that
100%.
individual.
Brilliant. So in that case, having understood a little bit more about the organisation, and thinking now about the early talent agenda, what sort of roles do you recruit in for then across the business?
So a whole spectrum. So if I talk about our early careers agenda, so we typically there are looking at that 16 to 24, 25 age group. They can come into our organisation in probably, I'm going to say, three different routes. So we have the apprenticeship route, and we will have our supply chain and our commercial sales and marketing. You could come in to do an engineering qualification, business administration, sales apprenticeships. Oh my goodness me, solicitor apprenticeships. There's a whole host there. But we also have the pathway of our graduate scheme that you can now come and join our organisation through. Again, both within our supply chain and our commercial part of the business. So we've got graduates coming in. And that's, again, another great opportunity. You come in on a graduate program with us, you get a wealth of insight and a wealth of experience because we rotate you through. So those who are doing an apprenticeship will spend time in our business. They'll immerse in the area that they're in. You still get that same immersion by coming in from a graduate pathway as well. So we create lots of opportunities. But I think there's a step before that for us as an organisation is how do you get those young adults wanting to come into your organisation? And there is an element around the outreach, the outplacements. So whether it be through work experience with us, when we could have brought people in to do work experience, how do we talk to them through mediums such as this? And then for those who've maybe taken the more academic pathway, we have internships and industrial placements that give that opportunity to come in. So what we've tried to do as an organisation is to create a wide enough opportunities that, whatever your ability, everyone has a potential. Let's find the right route to bring that potential into our organisation.
And then from a practical point of view, whereabouts in the country are you? Do you sort of recruit all over the place, and how have you responded to the pandemic as well? Because that's thrown all sorts of challenges in terms of working practices.
It really has. So we are a nationwide, so we operate within England, Scotland and Wales. Our heartland, if I would call it that, is England. That's where the large majority of our employees are based. But we have factories in Scotland, throughout England, and then we have our sales teams who are across the whole of the UK. So, you could join us anywhere in the country fundamentally, if you're flexible about the career that you want to take. But the pandemic, interestingly enough, for our manufacturing side of things, it hasn't stopped. They worked all the way through. They just had to be socially distanced. For our sales reps, they went back in June. So after the first lockdown, we did put a slight pause on our early careers in terms of a lot of the outreach because we just couldn't do that. And also the recruitment into our business didn't happen as we normally would have had it happen last year. But this year, it's almost been explosive. So we have been bringing in young adults in since January, and we keep going through that recruitment process. And we will probably almost double this year the amount that we would have done had the pandemic not actually actually happened. Because, I think for a lot of organisations, there's a realisation that young people have been adversely affected by this, and therefore what are the opportunities that we can create in addition to what we normally would have created to bring them into our business. So actually we're seeing an explosion.
Well, fantastic, glad to hear it. What sort of numbers do you recruit then each year, Sharon?
So our numbers aren't big. So we recruit typically between 20 and 30.
Yeah.
That was on our apprenticeship program, 20 and 30 young people. And this year we'll have 10 on our graduate scheme. And the numbers aren't big compared to some organisations. But although we have about 33,000 employees across our business unit, in the UK, there's only just over 3,300 employees. So it's quite small. And so therefore we keep our early careers recruitment at that smaller level, because our aim is that they stay in our company. So as they go through whichever program it is that they're going through, that at the end of it, if they want to stay with us, we create the opportunity for them to be able to stay. If we brought hundreds in, we wouldn't be able to keep them. So it's very much about let's invest so that we can keep for our succession.
One of the questions we always get is from careers advisors, parents who maybe struggle sometimes to see that actually these kind of opportunities are accessible nationwide. So I used to live up in the East Midlands, and there were a couple of schools around there, and very much the sense was, well, that's all right if you live in London, but these genuinely, there are opportunities that young people can apply to across the country.
There absolutely are, right across the country. And one of the things we do is we work with a number of partners who work with youth groups and in the early careers space to ensure that our reach is even further, because they will have more interconnections with schools than we ever will. And so we ensure that when the opportunities come up, we get them posted onto those platforms as well. So this week, our degree apprenticeship for our field sales has just gone live. And in actual fact, the locations are Macclesfield, a place called Falsford, I think, which is near Manchester, a place I'm not familiar with. And then we have Cambridge and we have Aylesbury. So they're all over they're all over the place. But we also have lots and lots of merchandising opportunities that are across the country. So those are just a few of them. But, we have our manufacturing site in Wakefield, for example. That's not London, and that's the biggest site in Europe.
Brilliant.
And so we create opportunity.
So when you're looking to bring young adults into the organisation, what are the sort of skills, the attributes you're looking for? And kind of part two to that question is, have you seen a change in that as we move down this road of the digital world?
So it's a question I'm often asked around in terms of the skills and the attributes. And for us, we have taken the view that we recruit for potential. So, if you can come along and you can be a little bit confident, because, not all young people are going to be confident straight away. If you can have, reasonably good communication skills, if you can be a bit of a team player, those are the sorts of softer skills that we look for initially, because typically they're not the things we can teach. We can teach all the technical skills. That's why you come and join us. We can do that. So we recruit for potential. There are some of our programs where your academic grade, in particular English and maths, are going to be a requirement. But what we've also done is we've worked with a lot of partners from training providers' perspective to say, we need to give somebody extra support if they don't have their English and their maths. And I've been having a conversation with a training provider today to say somebody may not reach that academic standard, but actually that might be the best that they could have done in the school that they were at. So therefore, we need to look at all of those factors. So we don't just look at academic grades, we look at that potential all the way.
It's great to hear that, and I think it's a very real fact, isn't it? If you're an employer and you're looking to recruit, that actually the difference between people who go to the schools that deliver the highest standards and those that don't in terms of attainment, I mean, it is the equivalent of 2 grades at GCSE on a national basis. It's really significant.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really, really important. We have a big social mobility agenda that we work with. And this is why I talk about the fact that we try to create and introduce lots of different pathways into our organisation. And the degree apprenticeship that we've launched for our field sales, we want to test our toes in the water with that one to see how that will work for us. But we have other degree apprenticeships, and sometimes we've got young adults who probably had the ability to go to university but couldn't necessarily afford to go to university. So they've joined us, and then they found a route to get their degrees through us. And I think this is all really, really important. And I know that a lot of my counterparts in other organisations are all on that same journey and trying to open up those doors for young people not to have a perception it's Coca-Cola. They will never recruit me because somehow, somewhere along the line, they've built a perception of who works for Coca-Cola. And we're now trying to break down all of those barriers.
Brilliant. And then so part two of the question was about sort of the changing nature of skills. And that's certainly a lot has been written, hasn't it, around the kind of the way in which those skills are evolving in the next 5-10 years, the fourth industrial revolution, the impact that will have. Are you seeing that practically play out into your workforce at the moment?
It's starting to. It is absolutely starting to. So a lot of the internal conversations I have, in particular with our supply chain side of the business, is very much around, what does automation look like 5 to 10 years out? We know it's huge now, but 5 to 10 it's going to be revolutionised. And therefore, how do we equip not just the young adults coming into our company, but also our existing employees who then have to be able to support those young adults coming in with working in augmented reality, with AI, and are the training providers that we work with ready to be able to deliver that for us as well. And that's the journey that we are starting on that side of the business. But also we talk about the digital skills and what's required. And I think there is a perception that a lot of students and young people, because they're always on maybe their smartphone or a tablet or something, that, they are digitally savvy. They're not. That's just the social media that they're on. And then they're comfortable with using technology, but actually we would have to train them in the technology that you need for the workplace as well. So I think we are on a journey, and a lot of organisations that don't work in that tech space are on that journey. To ensure that we have got the right skills 5 to 10 years out, because what we could bring somebody in and teach them today on a 5-year program will be obsolete by the time they finish that program.
We've all got a lot of learning to do, haven't we? I think over the next few years, that's for sure. And Sharon, I guess one of the other things that is quite interesting is being such a large organisation, so diverse. Presumably, the ability for a young person, once they've joined you, to then experience other disciplines, a bit like you did, and to kind of progress within their career. There must be quite a lot of scope with that across the wider organisation.
Oh, there is absolutely huge scope, and that's the fortunate thing about working for a global organisation, that the opportunities are there for you to take if it is what you want to do. Yes, you do have to work hard and deliver in what you're doing, but the opportunities are there. I mean, I have been fortunate in the time that I've worked for the business to hold not only the roles that I do now, but part of those roles had European elements to them, being able to go off to Atlanta when that was part of the organisation at that time with us. I have colleagues who have transferred to different countries to live permanently because that's the direction that they've wanted to. And I see a lot of our early careers, so some of those who did previous graduate programs go off to different countries and to work. So yeah, we have the scope, we have the opportunity, because we like to import.
And it is one of those things. I was fortunate to begin my career in a multinational, and I think it's one of those things that you really have very little understanding of just what is out there until you do start doing these trips and you get to work with different cultures around the world and understand actually different cultures do work in different ways, and it's a fascinating learning process, isn't it?
Oh, it absolutely is. One of the things I had to do was to slow down how I spoke when I was with my colleagues in Europe, because I'd be like, Sharon, you're talking too fast. And actually, that was an education for me, and it calms me, but it also helps me to see the different cultures and the interactions. We all have same challenges and different challenges in the work environment. But it is a fantastic opportunity. And I often say to those in their early careers with us, don't narrow yourself too soon. The world's your oyster here. And so I work for Coca-Cola Europacific Partners. That's just one bottler. We have hundreds of bottlers around the world that you can
fantastic. So for anybody who's interested in finding out more, Sharon, where should they go? How can they discover more about the world of Coca-Cola Europacific Partners?
So we have a fantastic website. Now, I really should know it off the top of my head, but actually, if you just go onto Google and just type in Coca-Cola Europacific Partners and type in careers, it will bring up our early careers page, and you'll see some great case studies of some of our apprentices, our graduates, our interns. They're all there, and videos
Brilliant. And we'll
as well.
stick a link to that, because the website is a little bit of a mouthful. We'll stick a link to that on our website. Sharon, thank you so much. It's been great to talk to you and find out just a little bit about the organisation. Really appreciate it. Thank you very much. And thank you to everybody else for joining this Talent Talk. Look forward to catching up with you next time, when we're going to be exploring another large multinational, but this time in the area of professional services. So please join me next time when we'll be talking to PwC. Look forward to seeing you then.